hello, and welcome to the Soul Garden. My name is Georgina Langdale, and I'm just delighted to have you here with me today. And today, I'm going to be sharing with you my approach to working with aromatics. And in this discussion, we're going to look at the beauty of working with raw ingredients. And we're going to look at astrology, and we're going to look at amulets, and we're going to look at Renaissance mysticism. And I hope that you enjoy it. Perfume is such a subjective thing, isn't it? We all have perfumes that we like and those that we don't, and even the way a perfume sits on our skin and changes over time, changes its aromatic qualities. These are all completely unique to the individual. But there are two types of perfumery, really. There's the kind of high street perfumery that uses lots of synthetic fragrances, and then there is the beautiful alchemical art of natural perfumery. So gorgeous. A few years ago I studied with Mandy Aftel, who is, she's basically the queen of natural perfumery and a lovely and inspiring human being. And if natural perfumery is something that you're finding interesting and might like to get into, then I recommend that you seek her books out. She's a font of information and wisdom. Many, many years before that, when I was living in London in the early 90s, I studied aromatherapy, so looking at the aromatics and physiological biochemical properties of essential oils. And these things have always stayed with me, and I work with plants all the time. So I have an apothecary that I call Archeus, which I founded over 10 years ago now, gosh, and I'm making beautiful natural botanical skincare and remedies and wellness and well-being products there. And so working with plants in this myriad of ways has really reframed how I see them. And working with them as a perfumer and as a healer and as a herbalist, I look at them in a number of ways. Firstly, I see the plant in its physical sense, and then I look at it with the medieval eyes of observing the doctrine of signatures. And what this means is how a plant grows, its shape, its form, its color, its relationship to plants around it, times of year. All of these things can help us build up a picture of how we might use that plant in medicine and in healing and in symbolism. I look at how do I work with the plant with its what I call the coarse aspect. So this is thinking about it as matter. So I might dry the plant or parts of the plant to then make infusions, a tea, or I might use it to infuse into oils. I'm in fact making these beautiful, in Ayurvedic sense, you call them medicated oils, by infusing herbs that you use in medicine into those oils, create something very, very special. I will also use that physical matter to infuse in alcohol to make tinctures. And then I will use the plant material, freshly harvested plant material, to make plant essences. These are flower remedies. So these are subtle, energetic imprints of the plant in the menstruum, which is water, and some alcohol for preserving it. And this sets up an energetic quantum relationship with the plant. And I've found this to be very, very powerful and wonderful for use in ceremony, in end-of-life care, in celebrations, and in so many ways. But I'll save all that for other episodes. For over millennia, aromatics have been seen as medicine for the soul and the spirit. Marsilio Ficino in the 1400s in Florence wrote extensively about this. He said there are certain ways of taking those plant aromatics to work with health. So he would say, for example, if you're feeling that your spirit, it's sort of loose and you're losing it, you can't quite grasp reality, he would suggest that you nourish your soul and your spirit with very aromatic foods. And it's almost that taking in of those aromatics and settling them within you is a way of helping ground and settle your spirit. Conversely, he would say that if your spirits are really weighed down and feeling low, so if you're feeling really depressed, melancholic, he would say the opposite. He would say this is when you need to have beautiful aromatics and odors around you because they help lift the spirits. And so when I work formulating and composing natural perfumes, I'm thinking of the ways that I can lift the spirits. In the way that I work with plants, I start off with my knowledge as a herbalist and an aromatherapist. And then I also layer on top of that my energetic connection with plants. From an early age, a traumatic event enabled me to suddenly see energy in plants and everything around me, really. So it gave me a shortcut to building that energetic relationship with nature. So when I'm working with plants, I really feel them. I feel their signature. I feel their character. Then another layer. I love this. Life is so beautiful, isn't it? Just layers and layers of meaning. I work with astrology. Hippocrates, the father of Western medicine, said 2,000 years ago, he said that to be a physician, first you must know the stars. This all goes back to this very ancient idea that our health and our well-being is in direct relationship with our relationship with nature, spirit, and cosmos. It was really widely understood that stars, us, everything in this cosmos, everything in this universe is made of the same stuff. Ficino said, we are made of stardust. So astrology was used to kind of peer into the stardust that you are made of and see how then by mapping your birth against the position of planets and stars and the moon at the time of your birth, you can start to see the character, the signature of the person, of their constitution, and work with this for their well-being. And when we look at the plant world, we can apply these signatures, these cosmological signatures to plants as well. So we will talk about plants having planetary astrological rulers. So a plant is really good for fighting off infection, may be under the rulership of Mars. A plant that is really good for women's health issues could be under the rulership of Venus or the moon. So there are all of these interwoven, beautiful layers and layers of meaning and wisdom that we can draw on. And I love drawing on this when I am working, when I'm formulating my products in my Archeus apothecary for my Nat Femme Botanics range, when I'm making my plant essences, when I'm working with clients, and when I'm making perfume. My approach to making a perfume is never just about the aromatics. It's not simply, now, anyone who makes perfume knows that there's no such word as simple in making perfume. But what I mean is, it's not simply about getting a beautiful accord of base notes and mid notes and top notes and finding gorgeous locks and really playing with aromatics in a multi-dimensional form. That is not simple. Oh my God, it's not simple. But it is a beautiful rabbit hole to go down. I also paint, and in a way, making perfume for me is a bit like painting an oil painting. It takes time. There's one of the perfumes I'm going to talk about in a minute that I made to render Marsilio Ficino in aromatics. I think that whole process took me the best part of a year, just keeping working at it, trying these different things, getting the light and the shade and the depth and the shimmer of that perfume. Literally was like putting my brush into the oils onto the canvas and then standing back and looking and then leaving it. You have to leave it for a while and then come back again, piece by piece. Perfumery is another form of art and artistic expression. When Ficino worked with aromatics as medicine for the soul and the spirit, he would look at the person, look at their astrological chart, and then he would start to look at what are the energies, what are the rays from the cosmos that person needs to draw in to themselves and around them to help with their well-being, their wellness. This is the term we use today, isn't it? And then he would prescribe the aromatics for them. So I like working in that way. And on my website, georginalangdale.com, I have 3 perfumes available, and each of them are an aromatic rendering, an aromatic portrait of somebody very special to me who inspires me. And those 3 people are Marsilio Ficino, the Renaissance physician and philosopher and soul doctor; Paracelsus, who is a physician and an alchemist of the 16th century, an incredible man; and then the 12th century mystic, abbess, artist, composer, all-round amazing woman, Hildegard of Bingen. Decided that I was going to create an aromatic portrait of each of these 3 individuals. Now, another part of the inspiration I had for that was from Gertrude Stein, the American author and woman with an amazing salon. And she did what she called word portraits of people. She rendered them in words like an artist would render them with pigment and brush. I read a book about her and Alice B. Toklas probably in the early 80s, and it has just stayed with me, this idea of these word portraits. So I thought, well, why not do the same thing, but with perfume? So Paracelsus, Hildegard, and Ficino, I've studied so much about them over so many years now. I really feel like they are, each of them are walking with me, guiding me in the work I do. It's a it's a very deeply felt connection I have with them. For example, when I was developing Magnus Hortus, which is the perfume for Paracelsus, I thought about his character. He was a firebrand. He took no prisoners. He was outspoken. He got himself in trouble. I think he must have had a huge ego, but also so sensitive to nature, sensitive to healing, sensitive to cosmos, and he was an alchemist. So I looked at what are some of the plants that would represent those firebrand aspects of him, and then balancing them, trying to create the accords, the aromatic accords, with extracts and resins that would temper that burning soul of his. So his perfume is quite spicy and hot, and whenever I spray some on me, I get a kind of rush of adrenaline. And sometimes I think that when I wear that perfume, I wear it for those moments when I need a bit of Paracelsus in my life, when I need that push and that confidence and that self-belief, because face it, we all suffer from moments of lack of self-belief, don't we? With Hildegard of Bingen, I looked at the time that she was living in to understand the astrological events that were happening through that time. I drew really heavily on her writings about working with herbs for health and well-being. For example, in Aromatics, she said that rose and sage would help dispel anger. And she worshipped the Virgin Mary. She wrote extensively about Mary. And so I thought about some of the plants that represent the Virgin Mary and also Mary Magdalene, all the time looking at symbolism and layering and balance and points of aromatic intrigue. So her aroma, Divina Essentia, is very floral. It's deeply feminine. For me, Hildegard is the deep feminine. She is Artemis, she is Hestia, she's just an incredible, incredible being. And then with Marsilio Ficino, again, I drew heavily on his writings about working with aromatics as spirit medicine, but I also thought about his deep sense of melancholy. He struggled. He had Saturn in his first house in Aquarius, and it weighed heavily on him. Saturn is the planet that is seen as it is related to things like depression and heaviness and darkness and death and all of these things. So he spoke often, or wrote often, about Saturn's influence in his chart. However, Saturn also gave him the ability to draw down these philosophical ideas that were kind of floating around in space and draw them down and get them onto the page. And I think that Saturn helped give him extraordinary insights as he was translating the works of Plato and things like the Hermeticum. And in Ficino's letters, he spoke often about these fervid love and for a younger man, and the intensity of his feelings were so strong they kind of leapt off the page at you. And so I thought about the heavy narcotic, heady scent of plants in a night garden, of those deep longings, of the seduction of aromatics. And it was beautiful weaving those into the perfume. The great thing about Ficino is that we have his birth date and place, and so able to work off his astrological chart. And so that enabled me to look at where are his planets, where are the pushes and pulls of the cosmos within his being. And how do I, as I'm creating this portrait of him, render them in scent, render them in base notes and middle notes and top notes. So the perfume that I created for him, Luna Signaris Stellis, is, I think, quite a heady and sophisticated perfume. These notes wind around themselves, and I think that there is a beautiful complexity in that scent, in that perfume, that what I hope is a lovely rendering of Ficino the man. All the perfumes I make with natural ingredients, and man, that makes them expensive. They're so exquisite. I stand in nature, and so working with these plants and trees, root, leaf, flower, in these ways is so alchemical. It is alchemical. This is an alchemy. You add a drop of this and a drop of that, and you get something totally magical. Or you add a drop of this and that, and you get something that totally bombs. So when I'm making these perfumes, this multi-dimensional relationship with nature and with cosmos is front and center of my approach. And I love the idea of making bespoke perfumes for people in this way. So imagine if you were wanting your own perfume and you came to me, I would ask you for your birth date details so I could draw up your astrological chart just in the same way that Ficino would have done in the Renaissance. And we would have a session together on Zoom, and we would look at that chart. We look at your chart and talk about the things that really resonate for you, and then I would start to prepare your natural rendering of nature and cosmos to create a perfume that represented you or that draws in your allies. Now, Ficino wrote a lot about this idea of amulets, and this is not just his idea. This goes back through millennia again, and you see it absolutely in Vedic traditions, using gemstones, plants, and astrology, Jyotish, to work out what a person needs for their well-being is thousands and thousands of years old. So I'm just stepping into that lineage and I'd be looking at you through that lens. I'm interested in creating a perfume for you that draws down the elements, the energies, the rays you need from the cosmos and from your plant allies in nature. This is not the stuff of the high street. This is an atelier apothecary in a scented garden. It is private and beautiful. working with aromatics, working with plant energetics, working with the physical matter of plants, working with the stars, working with music and art and the spoken word, holding sacred space for a client so that they can explore the things that are mattering to them. This is all part of my calling. I feel that there is something beautiful in this multi-dimensional way of caring and tending for someone's well-being in the good times and the bad times, in life and at the end of life. One of the things that I offer as well is making that perfume, that aromatic portrait of a person, as a way of remembering them. If someone has passed, working with creating an aromatic portrait of them may be beautiful for someone as they remember them. Paracelsus said this beautiful thing about plants, and he says, "The soul does not perceive the external or internal physical construction of herbs and roots, but it intuitively perceives their powers and virtues and recognizes at once their signature." So Paracelsus lived from 1493 to 1541. He was an alchemist. My hope in working in this way is that I'm creating ways for others to intuitively perceive the virtues and signatures of the plants that help them, of their own life force, the powers and signature of their soul. It's kind of an aromatic, augmented reality. So when you're out in a garden or in nature somewhere, what are the aromatics that you are drawn to? Is it that beautiful, warm, sun-drenched smell of hay? Or the heady aroma of a rose? Or that beautiful woodiness of cedar or fir? Pay attention to the aromatics that lift you up or repel you or weigh you down. Maybe journal them. Think about your aromatic relationship with nature. And if you're interested in exploring what that might be for you, what you might be like rendered aromatically, or your allies and guiding stars rendered for you aromatically, get in touch. I'd love to help. Thank you for joining me in the Soul Garden today. It's been lovely to have you here. I'm going to disappear off out into my garden now and smell the roses. See you next week.